So far as the municipal court criminal stats, we had a couple of city ordinance new cases, 4, 2 animal, 2 burning, flash trash, compliance dismissal for the month of September was 28, dismissed or deferred after disposition 4, dismissed after defensive driving 10, dismissed after proof of insurance, compliance 2, other transportation code dismissal, example of registration DL 12, dismissed by the prosecution 11, truancy cases filed 16, new cases filed 173, total cases disposed 131. Of course, you have the previous 5 stats of each year, and then the judge's report. I had 19 defendants arraigned, 30, of course, total. 12 were for felonies, 15 were Class A and B misdemeanors, 3 were for Class C misdemeanors. Bond set by the judge, it was 18 surety, 5 PR. Bond set by other courts, of course, is 6. Those are the ones that have warrants out of a county court or district court, whether it be this county or any other county, that get picked up. Warrants issued from my office, usually it's all the police department. We had 6 felony warrants issued for this month, 10 misdemeanor Class A and Bs. And keep in mind, council, these are just the complaints that they bring to me for me to issue warrants, okay? It's not the total amount that the police department picks up, okay? I had 1 blood warrant that I had to come out for one of the PD officers for a refusal. And I issued 3 emergency protective orders for that month. Pretty much it. Any questions?
Council, any questions for our municipal judge? All right, thank you, Judge. Great job. All right, as indicated, item 6A will pick up again on our next meeting. Item 6B is a discussion regarding forming of a public facility corporation for affordable housing under Texas Local Code Chapter 303. Bobby Maldonado, this is a presentation. Greg Reyes.
Yep, I'll do the introduction, that's okay, Bob, and then we've been meeting with developers that showed interest to do some development here solid. We've been discussing what is the idea of helping. I think what we believe is, what I believe is would help with housing. And Bobby had mentioned this, and I just wanted to entertain, see if the council was interested in entertaining this, but it's a public facility corporation. Bobby has been helpful and gracious enough to share his knowledge of what this is and other communities that have used it and that are using it now. But I'll leave it to Bob so he can kind of explain what all this is.
Thank you for putting that up there. Good evening, council, mayor, staff. I found something really short, and if you can tell at the very, very bottom, it tells you exactly where it's from.
Yep.
Just so you can find it, if I can read it. Texas Affiliation of Affordable Housing Providers. So we've had a couple of developers come to the city and ask whether the city would be interested in the terms affordable housing have been used, but so is the term workforce housing. The difference being the percentage of the average median income that is going to be used to consider the qualifications for the housing. 60% is typically affordable. 80% and above typically is considered workforce. This tells you what workforce housing is. Workforce is, and it gives you examples. First responders, teachers, police, medical professionals, and so forth. So it means they earn 80% above the average median income in the community, but still below what is usually going to qualify them for market rate apartments. That market rate is just whatever an apartment is going to charge you without assistance or without the constraints of having to be affordable. That is, whatever it costs them to service their debt and operations, et cetera, and they're not constrained by anybody else's rules or regulations. More importantly, they had financed and developed the entire project on their own with their own money. So they've come to us on a couple of occasions in the meetings that occurred here at City Hall, and have both, or I think several have said, what we'd be interested in is potentially partnering with the city if they would form a public facility corporation for the purpose of constructing affordable housing. They've all said this, so I'm sure Fred felt it was time to come to you with that particular idea with respect to possibly doing this in the future. Because what they're all asking the city to do is to partner with them in one way or the other. Now, what they're trying to achieve by getting you to consider forming a public facility corporation is they're trying to make the project tax exempt. If they don't have to pay taxes, then it makes the project more affordable. What that means for everybody else in this community is that no real estate, no ad valorem tax is going to be paid on any of that land or the improvements above and beyond for the project. So the upside is the project becomes affordable because they're not paying property taxes. The downside is all the taxing entities aren't getting taxes. So that's what they're asking you to consider. And I think one of the reasons why they're talking about a PFC is because the city's made it very clear that the city does not intend to issue any debt to give or lend or to help support or subsidize any project that is privately developed. And the city's also not going to be on the hook for any of their debt or operational expenses. And we've made it very clear to them. So they're looking for a mechanism that allows them to move the project forward. So this is what they have all proposed. Now, others have used this successfully, but the threshold question becomes whether you're interested in forming this corporation, because they're all coming to you to say, if you form it, we would like to use this vehicle to partner with you to develop a project that is tax exempt, because that's what this does. This allows potentially for the city or the PFC, and you might ask, well, who is the board? Well, since it's a Texas nonprofit corporation that will be seeking IRS tax exemption, 3 board members are necessary to form and also to operate. What I've done with my clients in the past is the board has always been the sponsoring entity. That is, the council becomes the board for the PFC, so that ultimate control and authority begins and ends with you. So you just switch hats to say, if we're going to authorize this vehicle to be used in the community, we are also going to control the vehicle that's going to be used. Now, you can do projects on your own if you choose to by using the PFC, and you have the ability to issue debt. And that debt, though, is paid for by the PFC and guaranteed by the PFC and is not an obligation of the city. So people ask, are you using taxpayer money? No, we're not. Are taxpayers obligated, property owners obligated to pay any debt that the PFC issues? No, they're not. But the PFC issuing debt, you're not going to be able to issue debt unless you're underwriters, like you've done with your other products when you issue debt, unless they are satisfied that the project that you choose to undertake is going to be able to pay for it. So that's what they're asking you to do basically, is that they're trying to get you to entertain the idea of helping their project be tax exempt so that it can be affordable to the community. They've done their own, they've all done their own initial rough housing or market studies. I don't think we commissioned a full-blown market study specifically for this type of project, but we would do so if you decide to move forward in the future because it's necessary. But what they suspect is that ultimately what will result with a project like this is going to be market rate anyway. Essentially what they're saying is that what Pearsall people can afford to pay as a percentage of income is still going to wind up market rate as opposed to workforce even affordable. Saying that people in this community don't make a whole lot of money, so if they can afford these apartments, it's not going to qualify, or the percentage is not going to translate into being affordable at 60%, or even workforce at 80%. That is, it's going to be available to the entire community based on what your income criteria is for this area. That's actually good news. Everybody is gonna have a shot at it if they can afford the rents. The rents that they've come forward with are pretty reasonable, if that's something that the city would choose to partner with. But the only way they can do that is if, in their opinion, they're saying if they can partner with you to form a PFC that makes the project tax exempt. And that's primarily, you can do a lot of things with the PFC other than affordable housing, but what it's been used for most people in years past has been affordable housing. A lot of times through housing authorities, but the reason why a lot of times they're getting away from housing authorities now is either housing authorities don't want to participate, or the legislature's really clamped down on the use of housing authorities as it relates to PFCs and affordable housing. But they've come straight to the city to ask you to consider it, and I'm certainly willing to answer any questions you might have about the PFC.
Council? Any questions for our city attorney?
Well, we've done studies as far as the markets around, as far as teachers and the need of housing, so, fair to say that any type of housing project should be looked at to move forward. I mean, we know that we're in need of it based on data that we've received in past years, so, I think it's a great idea. At least to get us.
To form, what does it take to form the corporation?
The process is quite simple, but it's gotten a little more time consuming. 2 years ago, I could form a PFC within a week. It's not the case anymore. Because of the scrutiny that PFCs have gotten with the legislature in 2023, now the Secretary of State's office tasks every application to form a PFC. It has to be reviewed by attorneys. And what I've found is that if there's a problem with your articles of incorporation, you're not necessarily dealing with the same attorney. The last one we did, we dealt with several attorneys, each of which said, for example, there's only one thing wrong, fix it, you're good. We fixed the one thing, sent it back, and they said, no, there's nothing wrong, and you're good. Different lawyer. I go back and forth several times. It takes much longer. The last one took about 3 months. But the process is simply, if the council authorizes it, it would be authorized by resolution, then you would give me, and this is no additional legal fees, but you would give me the authority to form the PFC through article of incorporation that you would have to review, you would have to approve. Simply, if it would take 3 people, 3 organizers, you choose the 3, or you can say it would be all 8 of you, and that's perfectly acceptable. I would just put all of you in there and say we're going to form, or we want to form a PFC in accordance with Texas laws, Texas Local Government Code 303. For what purposes? It's going to be any lawful purpose under the law and Chapter 303. And this is what we're going to do. It's very simple. It's a few pages. We submit it along with a $25 fee. I'm happy to pay it. And we wait. And whether it takes a couple of weeks or a couple of months, we form it. Once it's approved, we have an organizational meeting. It is a Texas nonprofit corporation formed not only under Chapter 303 of the Local Government Code, but for all lawful purposes under the Business Corporation Act, which means it's a nonprofit corporation. Then I will, on your behalf, apply for tax exempt status from the IRS and get you up and running. So it's not a difficult process. Now it's time consuming, it didn't used to be.
Probably, but how many clients do you have use this that you're currently?
That I have that are using PFCs right now, 3, and they're all using them or have used them for housing, multifamily. They can be used for other types.
Are you not basing off the market rent though?
No, the others, it's, one is affordable, the other is workforce. And I've got an HFC now that, one of my cities has a Housing Finance Corporation that has involved itself in about a dozen projects. The difference, if you ask, what's the difference between a Housing Finance Corporation and a Public Facility Corporation? What they're asking you to do, if it's a Housing Finance Corporation, the council controls the whole thing from beginning to end, period. Whatever you do is the board of directors, which can be you, and nobody from the outside controls anything. The reason why the developers want you to form a PFC is because essentially what you're gonna have to do to develop a project with them is to form a partnership where they essentially are going to run it and make the decisions. So what they're going to do is the PFC is gonna own the property, you're gonna turn it back and lease it to them. They all want 99-year leases. Everybody's ever done a PFC wants you to buy the property, own the property, or provide the property at little or no cost, and that's what they're asking you to do. And then turn around and lease it back to them for 99 years, so they can develop a project and basically run it,
Tax credit.
control it.
Is tax
Ma-
credit involved in it?
Pardon me?
Will tax credit be involved in it?
No, the council will, as a board of directors, but essentially, you would have to negotiate, certain control. For example, you can negotiate the, percentage of tax exemption, that's negotiable. Developer fee, that's negotiable. Even control and management can be negotiable. But the difference between a PFC and HFC is they wanna control it, which they would through a partnership. The PFC would be a partner, but they would be the partner making the decisions. And if it were a housing finance corporation, you could still do it, but you control it 100%. But they're not interested in that, for obvious reasons.
So who's gonna be in charge of like auditing and all that stuff as far as like, income limits and stuff, you know, cause you have to meet the requirements as far as, you know.
And that's a good question, and the answer is gonna be, that is gonna be a requirement, because if the PFC issues any debt, and they're not asking you to, but if the PFC issues debt, then yes, there would be an annual audit requirement. You can still require that in the partnership agreement. And it's going to be required, by anybody who provides them with financing. And the books are gonna be, and should be, you can require to be audited as a part of your annual audit. We did the same thing in my other cities, the PFC, the HFCs, any nonprofit, they're all audited by your auditor. Now, that's normally not done with the PFC, but you can certainly negotiate that type of compliance and reporting and record keeping and so forth. They have to run it right to maintain tax exempt status. That's the most important thing to the project and to them is if they can't keep their tax exempt status and if they can't keep the partnership on good terms with the city or the PFC, which is the city, then they're in trouble. And they need that. What we've also negotiated for some of my other cities is we've negotiated a piece of the annual tax savings. But they're not offering that, I know they don't want that. Because we know every year, you can calculate exactly how much they would be paying in taxes and how much this community actually is losing. The benefit to the community is now you have, whether it's 50, 100, 150 new apartments that are available for everybody at rents that are extremely comparable to what people are now paying or less. That's the only benefit to you getting involved in providing that tax exemption, is that you're giving up taxes, but in doing so, you're increasing the housing stock for people, if they want to live in apartments. There are other things you can do with it too. They can be used for single-family housing, duplexes, quadplexes, but it's, when you build multifamily, you get that savings by putting it on a smaller piece of property, greater number of units.
This is a pretty, again, as far as a tool, it's something that we're talking housing, not development. It's something that the reason is to consider this and say, do we really wanna do this? And if we do, then move forward so we can offer that to potential developers that may need some assistance, as far as development. Now, as council knows, I think the last subdivision that was built here was the Martinez's, I think. I think that was when the last subdivision that was built. Everything has been individual homes or things of that sort. But this is a tool that, again, if we're looking at housing and making it a priority, it's something that y'all want to do, it's available. And Bobby has mentioned it to me on a couple of occasions, and I thought it was something to bring the council to see you're interested in doing and potentially putting it on a future agenda.
you know, on council, that all in the name of housing, we've done a lot of things to try to incentivize. We've got some of the big guys down here, and because there is no comps, there is no current activity, it's really hard. So this is another opportunity to try to incentivize, get the wheels moving. Sooner or later, I can only imagine that it's gonna come as Texas gets bigger and San Antonio expands. But it is things that we could do to maybe jumpstart.
And this has been around for a long time. Not only cities, counties, housing authorities, hospital districts, school districts, they all can use this